What's up, guys? Welcome to Slurp. I am Steve. This is Cash Game Cornerstones for MLB for Thursday, June 2nd. And let's get right into it, because, boy, we got an ugly pitching slate out there. Though it's not as bad as I thought when I first started looking at it, after doing a couple little things. The obvious option there on the board is Wade Miley, because he's going up against the Padres, mostly, because I don't really think too much of Wade Miley as a pitcher, but I think he has a decent matchup setting up with the Padres, and that stadium is a wonderful boost for any pitcher. 8.9 on DK, 8.3 on FanDuel. I like his price on both sites. I think he might well be my top cash pitcher for FanDuel. And then this was quite surprising to me, really. I love Nicasio. I liked him even before I saw the Marlins lineup, but man, they are rolling out a shit lineup today. There's no Ozuna, there's no Stanton in it. I think even Derek Dietrich is not in it. It's an ugly lineup. Nicasio also gets a great ballpark boost going to Miami. He's got strikeout upside. He wasn't favored before the Marlins lineup came out, but I'm betting that will shift now that it has. He's only 6.9 on DKA, which is just like giving him away. I will, as weird as it feels, I will be playing Nicasio in cash today. Man, it's a weird sentence to say. 8.3 on FanDuel makes it more of a decision. I still really like him before the Marlins lineup. I thought, Miley, no question. Now it's a little bit more of a toss-up, but I still think I would go with Miley on there because of the win and how heavily favored he is. But I also like Matt Moore against Minnesota. The Twins have not been a very good offense this season, and Miguel Sano is on the DL list now, so that doesn't help them at all. 8.1 on DK, so if you wanted to pair him with either Miley or Nicasio, I don't hate that either. It'd be the equivalent of paying up to go Moore and Miley. There's really not, the only really expensive 10K plus pitcher on the slate is Carlos Carrasco, who I love. He's a really good pitch here, but he's just coming back off injury. He's got a tough matchup with Kansas City. His pitch limit's about 80, which is not too bad, and who knows if they ever stick to pitch limits or not. But all that being said, it doesn't add up to a 10K pitcher for me, especially not in cash. But I do also kind of like, this one's more of I don't know. I like Eichhoff, but not that much. The Brewers have a really righty-heavy lineup out against him, which seems unwise to me, but gives him a little boost. 8.6 on DK, right up there with Miley. I don't know. 7.0 on FanDuel. If you really need a save, you could do worse. He sets up pretty well against most of their players, except mainly Ryan Braun, but Ryan Braun can do a lot of damage by himself, and he has a history of doing that to Phillies pitchers. So he is definitely the lowest on my rung there, and I can't even believe it, but I love Nicasio tonight in cash. Whew, crazy. But with all this money left over from pitchers, we got some to spend on bats, which is good because, once again, Coors Field is on the slate, and it's actually getting priced kind of correctly. It's nice for a change. Guess what? I'm a fan of punting catcher today, although punting doesn't mean a whole lot because there's nobody really priced too low. But with the pitchers being not so expensive, we've got money to spend. I like my boy Tony Walters going up against Alfredo Simon. The Rockies kind of burned us all a little bit yesterday with not coming through after their big 17-run day the day before. But that being said, as bad as who was he? Oh, Lamb. As bad as Lamb is, Alfredo Simon's probably even worse. And I like Tony Walters to get in the lineup, being the lefty-righty matchup. 3.9 on DK, 3.0 on FanDuel. It's the most expensive of the guys I like on both sites. But I also like, hey, surprise, I like the Red Sox to score a lot. Crazy idea, right? Blake Swihart has kind of had a couple of down games, even though I've been kind of high on him. Going up against Ubaldo, who definitely has the potential to get blown up. 3.6 on DK, a really nice 2.6 on FanDuel. That is a punting catcher price, and I like that punt. But I also do like McCann, not James McCann, Brian McCann versus Boyd, who he's only faced like 4 left-handed batters so far this year. He hasn't pitched a whole lot, I think 9 innings total. And not that many in his career either, but he is actually worse against lefties than righties. Bit of a reverse splits guy. McCann is the cheapest, well, not the cheapest, on FanDuel, or on DK, at 3.5. 2.9 on FanDuel puts him right in that middle spot. You know, it's a bit more of a contrarian option than going either with Colorado or Boston. But if you're fading either of those 2 spots or playing them really heavily and don't want to take the catcher spot up with one of those, then I think McCann is a fine option. So I got another shocker for you today. I like David Ortiz to do well. He gets Ubaldo as well, and he's correctly priced at 5.5 on DK. Really expensive. Gonna have to spend up there to get him. 4.5 on FanDuel. Still quite expensive, but not quite the same. Ortiz has just been killing it. I mean, his farewell tour makes Kobe's farewell tour look even worse than it was. He has the same, a little bit better actually, home runs per at bat than Chris Davis, and literally half the strikeouts per at bat of Chris Davis. It's crazy. He's having one hell of a season. I like that to continue in this situation. He's probably the safest play on the board, with the next safest being over in Coors Field. Joey Votto, his price has finally come up too. He's $5K against Butler. Butler not a particularly good pitcher, but Coors Field is the real star there. 4.1 on FanDuel leaves him still in the right in the middle slot there if you can't afford Ortiz, or if you just want to go heavy on Coors. And then there's also the aforementioned Chris Davis, who carries a little bit more risk because he does strike out a lot. Like way too much. Chris Davis stops swinging at every pitch. But he's only 3.9 on DK. Fantastic price there. 3.7 on FanDuel is a little less attractive, but all the same, I think he's a really safe play despite his strikeout tendencies. You know, if you're into BVP at all, he's got a really great record against Porcello, who has been really kind of pitching beyond his ability this season, in my opinion. So 3.9 on DK is just a great price for a guy that has double dong upside on any day. And if you're not going with one of the Ortiz or Votto options. So, hey, I like some guys in Coors Field here. DJ LeMahieu, who's I'm sure his name I mangle every time I say it. I guess Alfredo Simon with an ERA of around 10. Literally, go look it up. He's 4.5 on DK, only 3.8 on FanDuel. Really, really nice price there. I'm hoping Brandon Phillips gets back into the lineup sometime while this Coors Field series is going on, because he is a real power-hitting second baseman, and his price is starting to drop with all the time out of the lineup. 4.2 on DK, 3.4 on FanDuel. Make sure you check out the lineups, because there's a strong chance he's not going to be in there. He hasn't been in for a while. He's been injured, but hopefully he will come back. He's not on the DL or anything, just day-to-day, the most annoying classification ever. And then if you're not playing Eichhoff, I like Scooter Jeanette to do some damage there. He's one of the few left-handers that the Brewers are rolling out. And Eichhoff is just like way, way better against righties than he is against lefties. At 3.5 on DK and 2.8 on FanDuel, he makes a nice bargain option for second base, which is usually a pretty good place to take a bargain. So if you caught the expert chat yesterday, you know that there was a bit of disagreement on what to do about Nolan Arenado, and they actually talked me into having a little bit of share in my GPP, and I'm kind of annoyed about that because he had a shit game. But I still think today that, I still think it was a good cash play yesterday for sure. And today the same. Hopefully a few people will be off him. He was like 40% owned even in GPP yesterday. His price is also up, which should help that. And hopefully people will see the righty-righty matchup against Alfredo Simon and not realize that Arenado's splits are actually a little bit better against righties. 5.4 on DK, 4.6 on FanDuel. I approve of that price, and hopefully it'll keep some people off of him. But if you don't like that, I also like going back to the Red Sox game. Travis Shaw against Ubaldo. Again, I prefer lefty-lefty matchups for Shaw because he is most definitely a reverse splits hitter. But at 4.3 on DK and 3.9 on FanDuel, he's a nice way to get a piece of that Red Sox action if you can't afford either Mookie or Ortiz. And then also, and this is definitely the riskiest, but also the sneakiest of the plays, A-Rod against Boyd. Boyd, another guy who I mentioned earlier against McCann, that he is actually better against righties than lefties. But A-Rod is not. A-Rod is very much in the traditional splits. He's only 2.9 on FanDuel. Really bargain third baseman there. And 3.7 on DK. This is purely a differentiation play, and I would say that you probably want to stick with Arenado today in your cash games. But throwing that out there for you. It still makes me happy every time I look at shortstop and see Manny Machado listed there. Yes, that's just a good thing. He gets Porcello today, who's been pitching well, but as I mentioned earlier, I think a little bit beyond his abilities. 4.7 on DK is expensive for Machado. 4.2 on FanDuel is pretty pricey too. But I really don't mind him, especially as a differentiation away from Coors Field. I don't know if Story will be popular today. I don't think so. He's really expensive and had a crappy game yesterday, and people might be pissed at Coors over yesterday. But I do kind of like Cozart. His price has actually come up on DK finally. They kind of noticed that he was underpriced, I guess. 4.2 on DK, 4.0 on FanDuel. Still a relatively better price on DK. But I like him on both sites there as just a relatively cheap way to get some Coors Field exposure. Butler is not good. Cozart can certainly provide you enough for your cash game lineups with maybe a bit of upside there as well. And then with the scratch of, I don't even remember who it was that got scratched, but Phil Hughes is in his place. And you probably don't want to use Phil Hughes, especially not in your cash games. But it makes the Rays a little bit more interesting to me, specifically the lefties, and specifically Brad Miller, especially on FanDuel, where he's only 3.1. He's 4.0 on DK, excuse me. I probably wouldn't use him there when you can just pay $200 more and get Cozart. But on FanDuel, if you need that cash, I think that's a pretty decent way to save the money. I haven't started making lineups yet, so I'm not sure how much we need that money, but there it is if you need it. If you guessed that I'm going to recommend outfielders from the Coors game, you're right. And also, duh. My favorites, though, then this is mostly price-based because they're all in pretty good situations, are Carlos Gonzalez and Parra from the Rockies. This doesn't mean I don't like Blackman. I like Blackman just fine. Left-right matchup. Simon is terrible. But he is pricier than Parra. Parra is only 4.6 on DK and a really cheap 3.6 on FanDuel. And he's a little bit less, I think, than Gonzalez, but I think Gonzalez is better with more upside. Gonzalez is 5.4 on DK, definitely a spend up option there, and 4.3 on FanDuel. But on the other side, there's, especially on FanDuel, a really nice play. It's Duvall, and I think it's kind of a sneaky one too, because again, we got a righty-righty matchup, but Duvall hits reverse splits, especially for ISO. His ISO is something like 330 against right-handed pitching. He has been killing the ball this season. Let's see, 12, 13 home runs, somewhere in there. 5.1 on DK is an appropriate price. 3.9 on FanDuel is not. That is too cheap. You should take advantage of that. And then I can't remember if I shouted this guy out in the video yesterday or not. I definitely talked about him in the expert chat in relation to how high he scored in Dong Finder. Hyun-Soo Kim gets Porcello, and he's 3.2 on DK and 2.4 on FanDuel. It's really cheap on both sites, but especially on FanDuel. He didn't hit a home run yesterday, but he did have quite a nice game. I want to say 2 singles and a double. Dong Finder's good for predicting more than just home runs. Extra base hits are usually part and parcel with it too. So I definitely like him for a bargain option. Then another guy that's kind of in the middle range, just getting away from these couple of games, Odubel Herrera versus Chase Anderson. 3.9 on DK, 3.5 on FanDuel. Typically leads off, which I absolutely love for cash games. Anderson, not a good pitcher. Herrera having a really nice season quietly. And I think that price more than justifies any risk of putting him in there. I don't think I even need to mention Mookie Betts. I didn't write his price down or anything, but I will. 5 home runs in his last 2 games. Yeah, that's pretty insane. Do I expect that to continue today? No, not really. But then I didn't expect him to hit 2 in the game the day after he hit 3. So I've been wrong before. And Mookie is just on fire. On fire. So there's nothing wrong with playing Mookie. That's for sure. He will be very, very popular. I'm also not opposed to the fade, even in cash, because his price is way up there. And he has to have one of those big games to really justify it when you could pivot off him to one of the Coors guys or, well, no, to one of the Coors guys. So that's all the plays I got for you for today. Come on by the Slurve tailgate, slurve.com to sign up. It's free. You can chat with us. We'll be hanging around in there on and off until lock. I will be getting my Dong Finder picks up later. Been doing them in text form lately, so I will probably have a little article on my Dong Finder picks out. So come by and check for that, and then just come on by and chat and say hello. We'll work out some lineups together and win some money. Good luck tonight, guys.